Tonight I will discuss the issue of climate change going on in the Earth, the implications of its change, and how it is imperative that humans address this issue immediately. This first reason is that human carbon emissions have risen to the highest level ever in recorded history. This is causing a host of different consequences. Quote, carbon dioxide has been steadily rising since the start of the Industrial Revolution, setting a new high year after year, writes The Guardian. This is not something surprising to all of us, and it is something that most accept as the truth. Now 97% of scientists agree that global warming is occurring in some capacity. However, the effects of global warming are not always tangible. Though most pollution is coming from the world's most industrialized countries, we are all one Earth together, and no region will make it out of this unscathed. Even Antarctica, the most remote area on the globe, is feeling the heat. Peter Tans, an environmental science research laboratory scientist, writes that the increase of carbon dioxide is everywhere, even as far as you can get from civilization. To give you some perspective, there are CO2 monitoring stations all throughout the globe monitoring our carbon dioxide emissions. Antarctica, which was the last area on Earth measured by these stations to have yet to surpass a 400 parts per million threshold, has done so. Parts per million, or ppm, is a measurement used to gauge how much carbon is being emitted into our atmosphere, and even Antarctica has not reached that 400 ppm threshold in over 4 million years. Climate change also has the potential to raise our sea levels, devastating communities that live on or near the coast. Though the effects of this rise in sea level are not far off in the future, already the U.S. has had to resettle our first ever climate change refugees. Isle de Jean Charles in southern Louisiana, south of New Orleans, has faced rising sea levels for the past 50 years, and its entire community and way of life is at stake. Since 1955, 90% of the original area of land that made up Isle de Jean Charles has been swept up by sea levels rising, almost completely devastating and wiping out the community. And don't think we're not at stake even here in Boston. The EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, reports that, quote, in Boston, Massachusetts, the increase in flooding caused by sea level rises this century could cost up to $94 billion in damage done to buildings, loss of building contents, associated emergency activities, and this is all depending on the amount of sea level rise and our adaptation measures taken to combat this. In other words, the amount of money spent and the number of lives lost is correlated with how well we prepare and adapt ourselves to climate change. The more we recognize this issue and the more proactive we are to combating it, the more unaltered our lives will be. The Department of Housing and Urban Development even announced grants to 13 different states totaling over $1 billion to help them make changes to adapt to the effects of climate change. There are real effects here, both financial and humanitarian, at stake with climate change. Rising sea levels and air pollution can displace communities and cost countries millions of dollars in unnecessary money. This would be money spent to combat climate change rather than adapt to it. It doesn't make sense to be looking at large expenditures in the future to make up for damages that climate change has done when we could redirect this money to be coming up with solutions to adapt to climate change and stop these ill effects before it's too late. Peter Tans continues that, quote, just because we have an agreement doesn't mean the problem of climate change is solved. We need to act on this before it's too late.